Welcome to the Around the NFL broadcast presented by Season 2 of The Boys on Amazon. My name is Dan Hansis, and I'm with some boys, nay, heroes. Greg Rosenthal, Mark Sessler, what is up?
People playing football. You know, it's mid-August. It doesn't feel like mid-August, but we got to get ready for this season, Daniel.
It's Greg's time of year. This is when Greg comes into full bloom, and you see a whole new version of Greg.
It is Greg in his natural habitat. So much ball to talk. And yes, the first week of August, very strange. We saw that on Hard Knocks. But now, as we inch deeper into August, hopefully, if the fates permit, we're going to get more and more closer to what football is in our minds typically. And we're excited to talk about everything that's happened this week in our league. And remember, the Around the NFL podcast, which is the reason this show exists, will be on the air 4 times a week once the season kicks off, in addition to this great television program. So we're going to be busy, and there's so much to get to, boys. So let's kick it off with some news. It's news time, boys. We don't have any time to spare. Let's get into it with some tight ends getting paid. George Kittle signs a 5-year extension with the 49ers. Travis Kelce signs a 4-year extension with the Chiefs. Kittle's deal, huge, monster numbers, blows away the tight end market. Kelce, not as big, but you know what? He's on his 3rd contract now, and he's still a star, and a nice job by him. Greg, what did you take away from these deals?
I'm going to start with Kelce because it makes me think about how much credit Tom Brady got over the years for like taking less money, maybe a little too much credit in his contract. And I guess we got to start doing that with Patrick Mahomes, because I think the example that Mahomes set in terms of taking less upfront money, pushing it into the future, not a lot of extra cash this year, and really signing a team-friendly deal helped set up the Chiefs to sign Chris Jones to a great contract, for Kelce to sign on board with 2 years left in his contract. They are taking care of their stars, but the stars are kind of playing into this whole idea of we don't want to just win one Super Bowl. Maybe we take a contract that we could get a little more on the open market, but we want to stay in Kansas City. And Mahomes really set the groundwork for this Kelce deal to happen.
Yeah, I think like you look at this team and the core on offense is intact for years to come. It's extremely bad news for the rest of the AFC. But I'll flip it over to George Kittle. I just think that I love what Daniel Jeremiah, our friend, called him on Twitter, a unicorn. That's what he is. There's really nothing else like George Kittle at the position. And I put him heads and tails at my number 1. I think he could have gotten more money, and down the road, I think he'll lay the groundwork for a player like him to get more at that position. This is a guy who on first downs averaged 12.5 yards per target. That's incredible. And the one thing Kyle Shanahan over and over says, it's not just the receiving game. He flashes as a blocker. He opens up the run game. He's a perfect player for that system. And I love the deal for San Francisco and for George Kittle.
All of your analysis there was spot on, Mark, with the exception of labeling Daniel Jeremiah our friend. That just felt like a little bit of a reach.
Just because
we're in different places with Daniel, so I'm keeping the peace with one of the draft gurus here at the network. I'm not sure what your plan is.
It is crazy though that Kittle, and he's set up now for the rest of his life, and his great grandkids are set up for the rest of their lives if the money holds up. That a guy that is that important in their passing game, and he's their number 1 target when Jimmy Garoppolo drops back to pass, who is such a massive cog in their running game that he can't sniff that top wide receiver money. Who's going to be the player that breaks the dam and evens this out if it's not George Kittle?
Right.
No one. It makes no sense. And it goes back to Rob Gronkowski, who signed a contract after only 2 seasons. So early in his career, they actually don't allow players to sign a contract that early in their career. And he was coming off of back surgery in college, and he ended up playing out that whole contract with the Patriots. They never gave him a raise like the Chiefs did to Travis Kelce. And when the best player at the position is underpaid for years and years, it's just stupid. It makes no sense. Like Deion Dawkins is a fine left tackle. He signed a contract with the Bills. He's basically making the same as Kittle. You're telling me you asked 32 GMs, who would you rather have, Deion Dawkins? No offense, Mr. Dawkins, or George Kittle. You're taking Kittle. He's more valuable. I'm in too deep. I am sorry to the entire Dawkins family.
Well, you're absolutely right, though, and we'll see if that changes down the line. But for right now, Kittle is the top of the market. All right, let's talk some other contract news. Everson Griffin, he had been on the market for longer than a lot of us expected. This is a guy that's been a proven pass rusher, a guy that makes a positive impact in all his years with Minnesota. He finally signs a deal. It's not with the Vikings. It's with the Dallas Cowboys, a 1-year, $6 million deal. So this is a line, Mark, that needed a little bit of a reinforcement. They had taken some hits in the offseason in terms of thinning out. And now you add Griffin. It feels like a great value add here in the middle of August.
It's ideal. He gets to go right to the right side of that defensive line where he played for years in Minnesota, across from DeMarcus Lawrence. We were tagging that pass rush as a major concern for Dallas all offseason, and suddenly, bang. I mean, it looks like a strength if both guys stay healthy. It's a total coup d'etat for Dallas. I love their draft. I love what they've done in free agency. And Dallas, to me, I know this gets said all the time, but I've been typically down on Dallas, and I feel like they have a little bit of NFC title game vibe in them with Mike McCarthy, a whole new offense, Dak Prescott trying to show everyone that he's been underrated off season. What's not to like, guys?
Can I just say something? I love that we got, these are some markers of our podcast, which has been going on since 2013. We got Sessler dropping a coup d'etat, and then right off the coup d'etat, a classic Rosenthal.
Right off that's how we know it's
We've got the beats
season.
down.
He's talking coup d'etat. Well, yeah, if you're seeing them as a championship game, type of team, Mike McCarthy specializes at losing NFC championship games. So he'd be the perfect coach for them. I am a little worried, though.
That guy's got a ring. Put some respect on his name.
It was too easy. The Cowboys are that team to me that are very boom or bust. And because they made like the last big move before the season starts, I feel like that team who makes the last big signing always ends up getting all the love on the NFL.com analysts pick the playoffs. Like, you're right. The defensive line was a problem before this. They do have Aldon Smith. That's kind of an X factor. But it's like now, okay, you added this one player. It'll be the last thing we remember. And everyone's just going to send the Cowboys deep into the playoffs.
Well, they send them there anyways. So now we've got some tangible proof to look at. I think they've shored up a major issue there.
Two things. Jadeveon Clowney's still in the market. So if the Titans, a team, the Seahawks, maybe they end up doing business, they'll end up maybe getting that last column saying that they had the best offseason out there. You could totally see that. Let's get to the next bit of news, gentlemen. You know the situation in Oakland. Derek Carr's there. He said needs more respect. So what does John Gruden do? In Vegas, excuse me. I always make that mistake. It's going to take time. John Gruden on Marcus Mariota, the new backup quarterback. He really fired me up today. He has turned a corner with his ankle and is a dazzling playmaker. Dazzling playmaker, Greg. And I feel like dazzling playmakers at the quarterback position usually end up starting for the team. But I don't know what's going on there in Vegas.
Yeah. Going back to Gruden's time in Tampa, all the quarterbacks usually ended up starting, and Gruden would always talk up his backups all the time, and he would love them like right until the moment where he played him. And then he would start, not talking too nicely about him to the public. But when I see this quote, I think of what Derek Carr said, how he wasn't getting any respect all offseason. And I think the people that weren't giving him the respect was his owner, who wanted Tom Brady and made that public, and his coach, who said at the Combine they're going to be looking for other quarterbacks. And you know what? They paid Mariota to be the highest paid backup in the league. So don't blame the media for a lack of respect. I think your team is sending out some mixed signals there in Vegas.
Look at the pipes on Carr.
Well, yeah, Greg continues to create enemies inside league circles here, which I admire to some degree. I mean, it kind of reminds me of when we started our show way back when, and I had my wife Simone. She sat down and listened to a couple episodes and said, "I really like Dan's voice." And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm also on the show, just to let you know." But she's like, "Yeah, I really think Dan has a good voice for podcasting and radio." And I thought, well, so where do we go with that? So, I mean, if you're Gruden has always had a fascination for the backup quarterback, and you got to be very uncomfortable to hear these comments after they paid Mariota $7.5 million guaranteed.
Yeah, Derek Carr is a guy that hears everything, whether it's on television or in print. If it's coming from his coach calling his backup a dazzling playmaker, how do you think that makes him feel? And I will use this time here on network television to say thank you, Simone Sessler. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
No one's saying, "Oh, that Greg guy, I really like his voice." Give me a little love.
Yeah, I didn't hear that from her or anyone.
All right, we are just getting started as we roll on with the broadcast. Coming up next, the great James Palmer checks in. He's down there in Tampa covering the Bucs and Tom Brady and friends. We'll hear what he has to say about life in Florida. Up next.
On the roster in New England is the old news. Tampa Bay ain't won a playoff game since like 02. Doubt they make it this year. Brady wants to show you. Oh yeah, this offense ain't nothing that you want. Oh yeah, they got Chris Godwin and Gronk. Oh yeah, Mike Evans too. Tampa Bay's got the juice, and this season they'll be working on the proof. Oh yeah.
Welcome back to the broadcast. And yes, Tampa, the center of the football world on some level as we enter 2020. And you know what that means? They got to send somebody important down to cover it all. And who do they tab? James Palmer. And he joins us now from his summer stay down there in Florida. Welcome to the broadcast, James.
Well, thanks, Dan. You know, I'm kind of excited because I got a text from Mike Garafolo a couple hours ago that was like, do you think you should do some sort of tax write-off situation for working a month in Florida? And now the wheels are turning that this might be, you know, a better situation than I thought. At first, there was Yingling and Wawa right down the street. A Philly kid could not be happier. But now this tax things start going in, and I get to spend time with Tommy. It's great.
That's very Garafolo-like right there. I just want to, before we kind of get into what's going on with the Bucs in this very exciting season for them, I got to, listen, I consider you not just a colleague, but a friend, James. And I see this shenanigans by the NFL Network. This is something that's important, James. You got to protect your likeness because that's all you have at the end of the day, your image. And it seems like they're having a little fun at your expense, ultimately.
Well, listen, I'm glad my name's at the bottom of it because, you know, Willie McGinnis called me Jesse Palmer the other day. People confused me for Tom. So maybe this can set me apart from everybody else, just having my own little, you know, likeness thing that's just mine. And I don't know. They didn't tell me that was happening. And they just used that when they went to me in my first report from the field in Tampa on Thursday.
Would not do that to Rappaport.
They wouldn't do that to him. And you know what? They sent me down here. They told me this is a month. It is COVID. It is a serious assignment. And that's how we kick things off.
Well, yeah, that is problematic. And I know you're also there along with all the shenanigans to cover a little bit of football down in Tampa. And let me just dive in. I know we want to talk about Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski. I look at this Bucs backfield, and I need you to, if you were, listen, you got a lot of time on your hands down there. You seem a tad lonely. Let's say I just sort of give you my fantasy team. You decide how I draft these Bucs running backs. You got Ronald Jones, LaShawn McCoy, Keyshawn Vaughn they drafted. There's a bunch of them. What is the pecking order here from what you can detect down in Florida?
It is Ronald Jones backfield. I mean, that is essentially what it is. You know, you mentioned you draft a running back in the third round in Keyshawn Vaughn, and you bring in Shady McCoy late. And then you have Dari Ungobolea, I think I said that right, who was essentially their third down back last year, who Bruce Arians really likes, actually, because of his smarts and the way he picks things up, and Brady actually likes him. But this is Ronald Jones's backfield. And that's why the entire offseason, after he knew Brady was coming, he spent catching the football. He knows how valuable catching the football as a running back is for Tom Brady. I mean, he completed 121 balls to running backs last year in New England. He averaged 10 yards a catch, which is pretty good his last year in Tampa. But Rojo only had 31 catches. So he knows he's going to get the football more, and they're going to change things up a little bit. But as of right now, if you ask Bruce Arians, he will tell you this is his backfield. And then when he gets tired, that's what they're trying to determine. When do you put in Shady McCoy? When do you put in Vaughn? How does the rotation happen after him? He is going to carry the load of this backfield as of right now.
That's how you know James is really getting into the culture down there when he's throwing out Rojo just casually. What is it like, though? It's like being a near a superstar down in Tampa. They're not used to it, Bucs, having like so much attention. I'm not talking about Brady. I'm talking Todd Bowles. The Bowles Assance was such a storyline on our podcast last year. What is the vibe around him right now? What's the attention? And what's this defense really looking like going into the season?
They're pumped, Greg, about the front. Obviously, it's a talented front group, and they have the edge rushers and JPP and Shaq Barrett, who led the league a year ago, Vita Vea in the middle, and I think they do have a lot of talent in the front. And I know we got to tie in Tom Brady's name into this as many times as we can. One of the biggest things that they missed this offseason was they wanted Brady to get reps against this front that is so complex, so confusing. You know, Todd Bowles likes to mix things up. And I do know, talking to people, today was the first time, or Friday was the first time that they were able to go offense versus defense. And they really confused the offense a bit by changing things up. And that's what Todd Bowles brings. And that's what they wanted Brady to go against, because they know how complex it can be to help him learn the offense. It's kind of how the defense, they wanted that to push Brady along and see how quickly he's learning. They're just now getting a chance to see if that can help Brady, but they love the front. Their safeties are a little and they like the corners quite a bit, even though there's a lot of youth there.
I wouldn't say there was a Bowles-assance on the podcast.
I mean, I was talking about it early. I mean,
it was a one-person party, and it involved Greg.
And it proved correct. What a month they had in December.
Palmer, let me ask you this. So, obviously, George Kittle gets a big deal. Travis Kelce gets a big deal. You got Gronk down there now with Tom Brady and Tampa. And you recently had a conversation with the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, about the tight end position and what it means. And what'd you get out of that convo?
Yeah, I thought he'd be an interesting person to ask, right? I mean, he's one of the most, studious guys on the defensive side of the ball in terms of breaking down film and studying, one of the smartest guys on defense, and obviously plays a part as a safety and how you handle tight ends. So I wanted to talk to him about the tight end position. And he said, there's so few guys that can come in and change games offensively at that position. But he said when that guy is on the field, it changes everything for the way an offense plays. And he believes gives an offense a distinct advantage. And he said teams that don't have that guy, don't have that top tier tight end that is just changes games. He said they have to find different ways to attack you and really bring that to you. And it's harder for those teams. And the other part of it that we talked about was, financially, this is record breaking for George Kittle. And what is he now? He would rank as the 12th highest paid wide receiver on annual salary. I mean, he's like, hopefully these guys and these contracts start to show, because he said, from my opinion, as a defensive mind, they make things so much more difficult on you, and he thinks they should be valued at a greater expense. I'm not sure about you guys, but he believes, and I kind of agree, that if you have these handful of top guys, they should be getting paid even more than, say, Kittle's record-breaking deal.
Yeah, I mean, there seems like there should be a category for these certain types of tight ends that are completely different than what the position began as. I mean, back to the Bucs on one thing, though, because it concerns me when I see everyone sort of ticketing them for the NFC South title, for the NFC title game, for the Super Bowl. We know that the Niners and the Chiefs can get that kind of thing done with their tight ends. Is there any implosion factor with this Bucs team that you detect? Or is there anything in the sky that says maybe this doesn't work out quite as pretty as everyone expects?
Well, I like the doomsday attitude, Mark. I do dig that. But I feel like, to spin it in a sense of positivity, that you can sense the sense of urgency that they have, right? You can tell the way they go through these drills and the way Brady pushes every single play that they know they don't have a lot of time. And they want to make sure they get everything together, because some people you talk to could say, this isn't a 2-year window with Brady. This might be a 1-year window with Brady, because you're not sure if you can bring back Chris Godwin. If you do you lose Shaq Barrett? Where's the money come from? Is Gronk just a 1-year deal? You sense the urgency that they want to get all on the same page, because they believe this is a small window. And when you change quarterbacks and systems, the main point I want to make, guys, before you kick me off this show, is this. Tom Brady wanted a collaboration, right? He wanted to collaborate with the head coach. But this is the collaboration. Brady is learning their offense. They're going to see what he likes, but they're not changing what they're doing for Tom Brady. So I think you have to make that clear, that they're not just going to change everything for 21 other guys for Tom Brady. He's still having to make the big adjustments.
Oh, it's going to be exciting. And hopefully, and I know in a COVID-19 world, you have an additional obstacle here, James, but maybe, just maybe before you leave, you get that invite to the Derek Jeter mansion where Brady has been staying. Cross your fingers.
I mean, social distancing, they wouldn't even know I was there. Yeah.
Thank you very much, James Palmer. Coming up next, Sean McDermott. Yes, he just got paid. He's got the security, but a big honor, the greatest honor. He's going to be our hero of the week. We talk about it next.
he's in like flip flops. He thinks this is going to be easy. No.
You have to matriculate.
This is resort casual wear.
Resort casual. You have to matriculate your way through these to survive, okay? First album you bought.
Michael Jackson.
The internet, has it helped or hurt man more?
Helped.
Does life exist beyond our planet?
Yes. Like it.
Do you own any jean shorts?
Not currently.
Would you let your children attend a Bills tailgate?
Yes.
Good. Every area of the tailgate?
No.
You have to cook one meal to save mankind. What is it?
Ice cream.
Lake effect snow. Real or government conspiracy?
Real.
There we
That's
go.
right.
That was
Great
it.
answer.
The Crucible. You survived.
You handled it well.
You did great.
With a
I need
plum.
more.
That was great fun last year at the owners' meetings with Sean McDermott, head coach of the Buffalo Bills. And now it's time for the Hero of the Week, presented by Season 2 of The Boys on Amazon Prime Video. And guess what? Sean McDermott, he is that hero, and he deserves it because he just got paid in a big spot. He gets a 4-year extension through 2025. And what he's done over there, Mark, he deserves every penny of this.
Yeah, I mean, he took a team to the playoffs before, Josh Allen with Tyrod Taylor and Nate Peterson at quarterback. I think that, to me, Sean McDermott, who is rising in power when it comes to the head coaches around the league, could probably live beyond Josh Allen if they needed to at this point. And I'll tell you something, what I love about the Bills is after many years of infighting and coach GM discord, his pairing with Brandon Beane has been absolutely perfect. Beane has gone out and gotten the players that McDermott needs quickly over the course of a couple off seasons, and suddenly the Bills, in terms of their Q rating, are shooting up through the ceiling. Panthers players want to come there. I think McDermott is the guy, and a lot of teams passed on this coach, and the Bills did not. Good for them,
including your Browns. And now he's getting the biggest honor. I mean, Hero of the Week is big. It's a lesson to coaches out there. Come on our podcast or a show, like we will favorably cover you, really, probably for the rest of your career. McDermott, I like him because he gives them an identity. You know what you're getting. It's a really smart secondary. It's a great fast linebacker group. Like you know what you're getting with the Sean McDermott top 5 type of defense. I have noticed though, like Mark, you especially really like him. I mean, you've kind of put your laser beam on him.
A little weird,
like,
yeah.
Like why are you so obsessed with McDermott? Mark.
I will say, if you look back at that interview that we did, I really was struggling with an initial question, and he was a wrestler, and I admitted to him that I lost to a girl in wrestling in middle school, and he could have walked off set, but he couldn't have been cooler about it, and I just said, this is my guy. Like, I'm McDermott till the end, so.
I've always had a theory with Mark and coaches, the ones that the Browns aren't able to hold on to, you almost become more passionate about them.
Josh Allen with Tyrod.
Take advantage of this opportunity tonight. Leave everything you got on that field for your brother. Bring the ball.
Relive Kansas City's championship season.
How about those Chiefs?
Hail to the Chiefs continues today at 12 on NFL Network.
You know, he's in like flip flops. He thinks this is going to be easy. No.
You have to matriculate.
This is resort casual wear.
Resort casual. You have to matriculate your way through these to survive, okay? First album you bought.
Michael Jackson.
The internet, has it helped or hurt man more?
Helped.
Does life exist beyond our planet?
Yes. Like it.
Do you own any jean shorts?
Not currently.
Would you let your children attend a Bills tailgate?
Yes.
Good. Every area of the tailgate?
No.
You have to cook one meal to save mankind. What is it?
Ice cream.
Lake effect snow. Real or government conspiracy?
Real.
There we
That's
go.
right.
That was
Great
it.
answer.
The Crucible. You survived.
You handled it well.
You did great.
With a
I need
plum.
more.
That was great fun last year at the owners' meetings with Sean McDermott, head coach of the Buffalo Bills. And now it's time for the Hero of the Week, presented by Season 2 of The Boys on Amazon Prime Video. And guess what? Sean McDermott, he is that hero, and he deserves it because he just got paid in a big spot. He gets a 4-year extension through 2025. And what he's done over there, Mark, he deserves every penny of this.
Yeah, I mean, he took a team to the playoffs before Josh Allen with Tyrod Taylor and Nate Peterson at quarterback. I think that, to me, Sean McDermott, who is rising in power when it comes to the head coaches around the league, could probably live beyond Josh Allen if they needed to at this point. And I'll tell you something, what I love about the Bills is after many years of infighting and coach GM discord, his pairing with Brandon Beane has been absolutely perfect. Beane has gone out and gotten the players that McDermott needs quickly over the course of a couple off seasons, and suddenly the Bills, in terms of their Q rating, are shooting up through the ceiling. Panthers players want to come there. I think McDermott is the guy, and a lot of teams passed on this coach, and the Bills did not. Good for them,
including your Browns. And now he's getting the biggest honor. I mean, hero in the week of the week is big. It's a lesson to coaches out there. Come on our podcast or a show, like, we will favorably cover you, really, probably for the rest of your career. McDermott, I like him because he gives them an identity. You know what you're getting. It's a really smart secondary. It's a great fast linebacker group. Like, you know what you're getting with the Sean McDermott top 5 type of defense. I have noticed though, like, Mark, you especially really like him. I mean, you've kind of put your laser beam on him.
A little weird, yeah.
Why are you so obsessed with McDermott? Mark?
I will say, if you look back at that interview that we did, I really was struggling with an initial question, and he was a wrestler, and I admitted to him that I lost to a girl in wrestling in middle school, and he could have walked off set, but he couldn't have been cooler about it, and I just said, this is my guy. Like, I'm McDermott till the end, so.
I've always had a theory with Mark and coaches, the ones that the Browns aren't able to hold on to, you almost become more passionate about them. Kyle Shanahan's another notable situation there. Bill Belichick, of course. And now
there's a lot of them.
The great Sean McDermott. All right. That was good. That was the Hero of the Week presented by Season 2 of The Boys. Coming up next, a classic Jets anniversary and some Patriots news. But before that, we have the latest trailer from the Amazon original series. Welcome back to the Around the NFL broadcast presented by Season 2 of The Boys on Amazon Prime Video. All right, let's head over to the AFC East and do some more news, get caught up on what's going on in our league. We'll start with the New England Patriots and their running back room, which adds a new name. Lamar Miller signs a 1-year contract with the Pats. Miller's been out of action and off the grid since tearing his ACL and MCL last August, Greg, but now he enters the mix, and there is, some need for a player there right now.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a run-first team, and I don't know if it'll be Lamar Miller. I don't think it'll be Sony Michel necessarily. He's on the PUP list. It sounds like he might miss the start of the season. Maybe it'll be Damian Harris, this second-year player. Whoever it is, I think you got to keep in mind with Cam Newton likely the starting quarterback, that Cam Newton played really well in Norv Turner's system in Carolina. And if Josh McDaniels and Belichick kind of have a similarity in terms of the offensive system they run. Norv Turner comes from the same Parcells tree and runs a lot of very similar things. They get very complex. They have a complex and veteran offensive line. And I think Cam being the leader is going to only be part of what's going to be a really multifaceted running attack, which also includes James White quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm with you, Greg. I think outside of the Ravens, I could see the Patriots being the second run heaviest team in the AFC. And they have 6 running backs and 2 fullbacks right now. And Belichick, if he could have his way, would keep all of them and surprise you each week with who he uses. So I'm not going to put a winning horse in the race at this point. Wait and see.
In other running back news in the division, Le'Veon Bell signed that big deal with the Jets last free agency and then proceeded to have the worst year of his career. He's been very upfront about his play last year and acknowledging that it was not worthy of the paycheck he signed. He said that he got complacent and he has rededicated his body. Here's a tweet. He's almost like he's apologizing, and he wants everyone to know he's still one of the best running backs in the league, but perhaps we need to see it after what went down last year at the Meadowlands.
I mean, so you hold out on the Steelers for a year, then you get paid $35 million guaranteed to go to the Jets, and then you fall into complacency. I wonder if someone gave me that kind of money, how complacent I'd feel with an entire offense resting on my shoulders.
Well, I feel like you'd be complacent. We all would, with like way less money than that. Like, give me 1/15 of that, and I will get incredibly complacent. It was disappointing to watch Bell. I loved watching him in Pittsburgh. He's one of the most unique talents I think we've had a chance to cover, and you could see him having the same instincts he had before, but he didn't have the same juice. And Dan, as a Jets fan, I thought this was a good signing. I still think it can be a good signing. I am buying the Le'Veon Bell rejuvenation hype.
He is very clearly in great shape this summer. And yeah, I'm very excited to see just how he bounces back from this. Clearly, he's in a better mindset. But I also agree with you, Mark. I mean, if you remember, he sat out that entire season. He said he wasn't just doing it for himself. He was doing it for all the running backs that get underpaid. And then when you get paid, you don't show up in great shape. So it was not a good look for Bell. But I think, again, better offensive line, Sam Darnold in year 3. Don't be surprised if Bell gets back to 1,500 yards. I just can see him being an all-purpose guy that does things this year, as long as Adam Gase doesn't put him in the doghouse. Who knows what's going on with that guy. And on the subject of my Jets, I want to share a anniversary of sorts. 5 years ago this week, the Punch heard round the world. Everyone came to the Florham Park press conference, and one of the reporters says, "Hey, should we record this?" And Todd Bowles-Assant said, "Yeah, you're going to want to record this," because IK Impali, the defensive lineman, sucker punched Geno Smith, the Jets starting quarterback, broke his jaw in 2 places, changed the lives and careers of both men, really. Happened 5 years ago this week. Ryan Fitzpatrick took over for Geno and led the Jets to their most successful season in a decade. They went 10-6 that year. But it is incredible, Greg, that this happened. That you could be a starting quarterback and over $600, Greg. It was a plane ticket and a summer camp that Geno skipped out on, and IK bopped him for it, and it went down in NFL lore.
And it was unfortunate, and Jets fans loved it in the end because Ryan Fitzpatrick had a great season, and Geno Smith, maybe there was something he would regret about what he did, but I felt it was unfair at the time. I mean, imagine you're Geno Smith. You just got your season essentially ended, your career changed, and the next day you're looking at the newspaper, and the headline is "Jets fans rejoice as QB out 6 to 10 weeks." This was a rookie quarterback who went 8-8. And sometimes, fans are like, "Oh, they couldn't handle New York." But it's like, well, New York, and I was a fan of Boston teams. It's like, no, they were jerks a lot of the time. It's not that they can't handle it. And it's like, it's hard to blame Geno for being a little upset when that was the reaction for him getting knocked out.
I'm with you. And I think if you read that piece that was put out on ESPN, that there were a lot of players that wanted Geno to succeed. It wasn't an entire locker room against him. And Geno is understandably agitated that there's an anniversary celebrating this. If this happened to one of us, I wouldn't want an oral history put out about it half a decade later. But at the same time, Geno Smith had people whispering about who he was as a teammate as well. And I think that's trailed him a little bit. And it's crazy to see that if you knew back then that Ryan Fitzpatrick would have the career he's had, and Geno has vanished into the darkness.
Yeah, Geno still hanging on. He's Russell Wilson's backup in Seattle. I think there is something to take out of it, by the way. And it's, yes, maybe the tabloids got a little too excited about it. And maybe Jets fans never really liked Geno Smith, because, by the way, he's not that great a quarterback, Greg. I'm sorry. But there is something to learn, something to
gotten
to
further
teach
in the playoffs than the Jets have the last couple of years, Geno Smith.
Well, to no credit of his own, please.
There's something to teach here, and something to teach to your sons as well. He didn't know who this guy was, IK Impali. He didn't know his background, what kind of temper the guy had. You never disrespect and kind of make fun of a guy the way Geno did. And he kind of blew him off in the locker room and mocked him for trying to collect the money, and then just turn your back on the guy. You have to be able to understand that you don't take anything for granted, and you don't assume that the guy is harmless, because IK wasn't in that spot. And I feel bad for him because he's trying to get his life back together. I think he works in real estate now somewhere. He's out of football.
Teach your sons not to assault people at a workplace. I mean, teach them that.
Oh, that was terrible. That was terrible, Greg. Obviously that was wrong. He should have went to jail for it. He broke the man's jaw in 2 places. But Geno, I think he earned his role in it as well. Maybe he didn't earn a broken jaw, but earned being a target the way he was on some respect for what happened. I have to throw it to, we're not going to celebrate it here, but let's check out when Rex Ryan Geno Smith's enemy and his former head coach, named Ike Empoli, who had signed with the Bills the next day after he had been cut by the Jets.
Right.
Rex, when the Bills played the Jets later that season, he makes Ike a captain, and then Geno has to answer to that. Let's check some of that out.
About that. I don't think anything. It's his decision. So I really don't think much about it. I don't take it personal, if that's what you're asking.
Why don't you take it personal since he punched you?
I mean, why would I?
Because he punched you.
Next question.
And Geno on Twitter has some things to say as well. Obviously, this is just a taste of what he tweeted about. He didn't like that this was something that was brought back up because you kind of get it. This was a dark, dark moment in his life, and it really did change his career. He went from being the starting quarterback of a Jets team that had great weapons and Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker and a good offensive line, and then he went to the background. Fitzmagic takes over, and that was kind of it for Geno. He never got another shot.
Dan, is there a little part of you that misses Rex Ryan as a Jets fan? Just a little bit.
No, not at all. I missed the first 2 years of Rex Ryan as a Jets coach. That's about it. All right. That's it. Let's move on. Coming up next, the Seattle Seahawks are in a great spot, but one player on the Seahawks made a bad decision that cost them a spot to be on the team. Ooh, you're going to want to hear about this up next. Welcome back to the broadcast. Let's dig into this wildest, most salacious story of the week in the NFL. It happened over at Seattle Seahawks camp, and let's check out some reporting here from Tom Pelissero. The Seahawks cut rookie cornerback Kima Siverand this week after he was caught on video trying to sneak a female visitor into the team hotel. Clear message on the responsibility everyone has in the NFL's COVID-19 world. Put the team at risk, suffer the consequences. Tom added, the woman was wearing Seahawks gear in an attempt to disguise her as a player, I'm told. It did not work. And why would it? An absurd decision by young Kima, and it cost him the chance of catching on with a very good Seahawks team.
It makes you wonder what would happen if they really tried an NFL bubble. And I've seen people throw this out. It's like, well, they got to do the NFL bubble. Okay, so let's do the math. We got about 2,500 players in training camp right now. Maybe when it's a season, it's 1,600. How many women are getting snuck into that bubble? I mean, that is an outrageous ask to keep all women away from the players throughout the season. So I think this is a lesson here that the bubble is not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say this. Outside of the Seahawks obviously being annoying, in Seahawks gear, thinking that someone would think, hey, that's an NFL player. I don't know, it's not the greatest crime plot of all time. I tried, outside of the Seahawks obviously being annoying, in Seahawks gear, thinking that someone would think, hey, that's an NFL player. I don't.
Sanctified by sport.
Back to the broadcast. Let's dig into this wildest, most salacious story of the week in the NFL. It happened over at Seattle Seahawks camp, and let's check out. Back to the broadcast. Let's dig into this wildest, most salacious story of the week in the NFL. It happened over at Seattle.
Give players the best options. The NFL provides grants and data to the engineers and innovators working to build a more advanced helmet. Because raising the bar on helmet technology is built. Back
the broadcast. Let's dig into this wildest, most salacious story of the week in the NFL. It happened over at Seattle Seahawks camp, and let's check out some reporting here from Tom Pelissero. The Seahawks cut rookie cornerback Kima Siverand this week after he was caught on video trying to sneak a female visitor into the team hotel. Clear message on the responsibility everyone has in the NFL's COVID-19 world. Put the team at risk, suffer the consequences. Tom added, the woman was wearing Seahawks gear in an attempt to disguise her as a player, I'm told. It did not work. And why would it? An absurd decision by young Kima, and it cost him the chance of catching on with a very good Seahawks team.
It makes you wonder what would happen if they really tried an NFL bubble. And I've seen people throw this out. It's like, well, they got to do the NFL bubble. Okay, so let's do the math. We got about 2,500 players in training camp right now. Maybe when it's a season, it's 1,600. How many women are getting snuck into that bubble? I mean, that is an outrageous ask to keep all women away from the players throughout the season. So I think this is a lesson here that the bubble is not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say this. Outside of the Seahawks obviously being annoyed, I have to respect the effort put into it. Dressing her up in Seahawks gear, thinking that someone would think, hey, that's an NFL player. Right? I don't know, it's not the greatest crime plot of all time. I tried something similar in my high school years, got caught, and my punishment was, mowing the lawn about 200 times. You can't get away with this without a foolproof plan, and that was not the situation here.
I don't know what Kima's taste is in women, but it's possible that this one was just too small. I mean, and football players profile as very large human beings. Maybe could have done the old move where the big trench coat and you have maybe your buddy underneath and then the woman on the shoulders of the buddy with the big brown cap and sunglasses. And maybe then you pull this off and you have a magical evening. But
what is this, like a cartoon from the 1940s or something? Really,
it could have been worse than this. It was a terrible idea, and I just want to all this stuff. And this is not just this situation. This goes across everything with football. We're sending a message in a COVID-19 world. This will not be tolerated. Okay, what if it was DK Metcalf that brought in the girl? Is he being cut too?
Right.
The fact that how about the fact that this guy was undrafted and had a $2,000 signing bonus? Probably factored into him getting cut as well. In other news, good luck though, Kim. I know we've all made mistakes and we've had transgressions in our lives. That was yours. All right. Falcons running back Todd Gurley. He could have a limited workload in training camp. ESPN, Vaughn McClure, one of my favorite names in the game right now, reported this week that Gurley's been spotted at camp walking with a slight limp and also wearing a compression sleeve over a surgically repaired and arthritic left knee. However, Mark Sessler, it was also added by Mr. McClure that he's been moving and cutting well in practice.
Well, it's tough to imagine how both are happening, but, these players are physical specimens. I just think that he wasn't the same guy last year. Obviously, beyond the health stuff, the Rams' offensive line fell apart, and I thought it showed in Todd Gurley's game, along with other aspects of the Rams' offense. And, here's a guy that has left the Rams with $18 million of dead cap money over this year and next. And I'm not sure what the Falcons have got at this point. You've got Ito Smith, you've got Brian Hill behind Gurley. But if this doesn't work out, this was a very costly offseason maneuvering when there were other running backs out there.
Yeah, I think they have a solid starting running back, but I think anyone expecting like the Todd Gurley of his best to be back is ignoring all the film from last year. That's the thing. It's like, okay, yeah, he's struggled with injuries, but he's had a ton of carries. He's been on the field. He's played, and he just didn't have the same explosion. He was not breaking tackles. He ran hard last year. I expect him to run hard this year. They have a very similar kind of running scheme in Atlanta, but there's no real reason to expect that he's going to be the Todd Gurley we saw a few years ago.
NFL Network put together, or our great digital social media team put together, I don't remember what the countdown was exactly, but it was something along the lines of the best play from last year from each of the all-pros of the last 5 years or something. And for Todd Gurley, when it was time to show his play on the countdown, it was a play where he bounced to the outside and went for 19 yards before stiff arming a guy and going out of bounds. So he just was not an explosive player anymore. It also, though, does make me think about it because I like Todd Gurley. We live here in LA, and he was a great face of the franchise type figure for the Rams. And it's just a bummer it didn't work out. And that's the way sports goes sometimes. But, Alex Smith, we talk about, has comeback player of the year on lock if he could somehow make it back from that gnarly leg injury. If it wasn't Alex Smith, Todd Gurley being given up for dead as the franchise star of the Rams and then reinvigorating himself in A-Town. They call it A-Town? Well, I know Usher did. It was 2004, though. That would be worthy of comeback player of the year.
A-Town's making a comeback, I feel like. Just as a name, A-Town. Let's bring it back.
All right, coming up next, we're about to say goodbye. But before we do that, it's one final thought. Odell, he's on the #1 streaming video in the world right now. We're going to get into that. Up next. Enjoying the Around the NFL broadcast? Well, you'll love the Around the NFL podcast, the #1 NFL podcast in the game. By our estimation, at least. News, analysis, and coverage of every game delivered, as always, with a touch of mirth. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to the broadcast. It is time now for one final thought. Mark, get us going.
Well, the NFL world lost one of its great coaches this past week, Howard Mudd, the offensive line assistant for years and years across the league, died in a motorcycle accident. And I just think this guy's career is hard to really compare to anyone else's. An all-decade team player with the 49ers in the 60s, along with Gene Upshaw. He went on to decades and decades of coaching offensive lines. Here he is with the Browns. I was a young Browns fan and was super nerding out, had this magazine called Browns News Illustrated sent to my house. There was a cover article on Howard Mudd, and I never have thought about him the same way since. And I really, Peyton Manning called him the best offensive line coach he's ever worked with. He was a total man's man, one of a kind, and the NFL will not be the same without him.
Greg?
Yeah, we got the news this week that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 will not be playing football, and your heart just breaks for these college athletes. And you also start thinking about like the college analysts out there, like Daniel Jeremiah, our friend. Move the sticks, and you're thinking like, what's he going to do with all this extra time? And I have an idea, Daniel, if you're watching, start a podcast. Like it's growing. Like our old coworker Deion Sanders said, podcasts are the future. I think people would want to hear what you have to say, Daniel, about how crazy this season is and what it's going to do to affect the draft. Maybe get a co-host that kind of knows this stuff too. I just think this could be your route to making something positive out of a negative. What do you think?
That's cool of you. That's very cool of you, Greg. Great suggestion. I want to talk about Laugh Now, Cry Later. It is the new single by Drake off his new album. And Mark, this is something you've been called in your own home, Certified Lover Boy. And Odell Beckham Jr. and Marshawn Lynch both appear. They have cameos in the video. And it just reminds me again, and it is time after all the years of hip-hop guys wanting to be athletes and athletes wanted to be hip-hop guys. It's time to act on it. And everybody's trying to get a spring league off the ground. Let's do it. The Hip-Hop Ballers League this spring. All hip-hop guys start their own league. And then all the athletes, they're the ones that do the music that we have for all the action. I feel like it's time to just embrace this, and it feels like a moneymaker. And I know we're going to have nice rosters. Who's the #1 overall pick, Greg? Think on that while I bring in Erica Tamposi for her final thought.
What a show, you guys. We have Mark making a confession about sneaking a girl in the house in high school dressed as a Seahawks player. We didn't get clarification on that. We had A-Town references. Like, this is crazy. But my one final thought is that, the Patriots are notorious for sending out their hype videos on Twitter and social media and stuff. And it just makes me sad right now. They had a couple, hype videos that they put out, and it's just not the same.
Wow,
I don't know about you, but it just feels sad.
Cam Newton isn't exciting enough for you. Julian Edelman's not exciting enough.
They put him in the last 30 seconds.
Ricky, it's because
they didn't even cut the cam.
It's for a simple reason. The Patriots aren't special anymore. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see about that. But I mean, at least highlight some good stuff.
Greg, who is the first overall pick for the Hip Hop Football League?
I know he's getting up there in years, but I'm going 50 Cent. Curtis Jackson. Just seems like a size, strength, speed combo that you want.
All right, good choice. Okay. Thanks for watching Around the NFL, presented by Season 2 of The Boys, only on Amazon Prime Video. Thank you. Join us next week. That's good. Snoop Dogg would be mine. I got it.